Victoria will be closed for new applications as of the 29th of April 2025. Yes, it's closing, but it will always reopen again in the new financial year. So if you couldn't get your application in now, you can always lodge again in the next couple of months. And to be honest, sometimes that's better anyway. Now you'll see a lot of states will start to close. But again, this happens every single year. Can you still get your partner visa if there is a relationship breakdown? So you may have lodged a partner visa with your Australian partner and things don't really work out. Here are 3 ways that you can still be granted that partner visa. First of all, there are children in that relationship. So it's in the best interests of the child for you to be granted that visa. Second of all, you're a victim of DV in the relationship. Now, this does not need to be just physical. It can be coercive and emotional abuse as well. So definitely get legal advice in relation to that. And lastly, if the sponsor sadly passes away, you can still be granted the partner visa. When it comes to employer-sponsored visas, I know we talk a lot about the requirements for the visa applicant, but what are the requirements for the employer? Now, depending on the occupation, there are certain caveats that do apply. However, the department will judge the business. And one of the things they judge is whether the employer genuinely requires that position within their business. So one of the really popular occupations for employer sponsorship is accountant. But accountant is a very tricky one. It's actually really hard for a lot of businesses to justify that they need a full-time accountant. If you're working in an accounting firm, then that would be fine. Of course you need accountants. But when it comes to other types of business, unless the business is really large and has a huge accounting department, a lot of the times these applications get knocked back. So say for example, if you're a smaller scale restaurant, you wouldn't be able to justify that you need an accountant. Whereas if you were an accountant working in the head office and the business owns a number of restaurants, then that would potentially work. But it's something to definitely keep in mind when you're looking for employer sponsorship. I think that there has recently been a lot of student visa refusals, and in particular for onshore visa applicants. The good news is that if you were refused the visa here in Australia, you can appeal the decision. And the even better news is that you can still win the appeal. Just because you got a student visa refusal does not mean that it will be a dead end. So we've been handling a lot of these ART appeals, and here's my experience with them. So first of all, you've already got a copy of the refusal, so you know what you need to focus on. However, do remember at the ART, they'll also consider all the other requirements, but you focus on that and you can provide new evidence as well. And the best thing is that you get to speak to the member. So as your representatives and yourself, you can actually plead your case to the member, which is much better than a case officer assessing your application on a computer screen. And our experience is we get very good outcomes with this as long as you're a genuine student and you meet the requirement. You are able to get that decision remitted and sent back to the department for processing. So if you do need to apply for the appeal, take it seriously because you can absolutely still get approved, which therefore means you can probably apply for your temporary residence, your TR, and have a straightforward pathway to PR. Someone asked me if you get a student visa refusal, will it affect your 485 TR visa? So the answer is yes and no, but let me explain. There are certain requirements for the 485 TR visa, and they mainly are that you must have held a student visa within the last 6 months and completed your qualifications. So if your student visa was refused and you hadn't gone to hearing yet and you hadn't had a chance to win your case, then you don't meet the requirements for the 485 TR visa. So that's what makes the appeal process really important now for student visa refusals. However, if you had a student visa refusal and you were able to go to hearing and win your case before you finish off your course and the ART remit your decision back to the Department of Home Affairs, your student visa will be granted and therefore you should meet the requirements for this 485 TR visa. I've done consultations for a few of these visa refusals already, so I thought it was really important to do a video about this. These applicants lodged an expression of interest and claimed 5 points for regional study. However, half of their study was conducted online overseas during COVID. Once the borders opened, they came to Australia and completed their studies in the regional institution. They went and lodged their expression of interest after studies and they claimed 5 points for regional. Unfortunately, the visas were refused. So the case officer refused this on the grounds that they didn't do all their studies in regional. They don't take the COVID border restriction into account when they're assessing regional points. This is really important for anyone who has done this or is looking to do this.